Well, good afternoon. Welcome to our special called school board meeting today. Go ahead and call this thing to order. First thing on the agenda is public comment. Is anybody here to speak on the agenda tonight, on the reason we're here? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the director, Mr. Carter, to discuss the issue at hand, which is the 24-25 general purpose budget.
Good afternoon. So just to catch everybody up to speed, what's taking place over the last week or so. 2 weeks ago, we presented the budget that was approved by the school board to the budget committee. In turn, the budget committee wanted to have an opportunity to look over our request and then submit questions to which we would then provide some responses and then come back. The timeline was such that we really didn't have opportunity to let Mr. Loesch address those questions before that last Wednesday's meeting with the Budget Committee. Budget Committee Chairman Akard said he would be glad for us to take some time to get those questions responded to, but that they were going to take a vote. A procedural vote is what it told Chairman Price and myself. So it was a unanimous vote to reject the budget as it was submitted. We did get the questions. First of this week, we sat down on Monday morning, worked with Mr. Loesch and Mr. Price, and we...
Director Carter, I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yes.
And I'm sure I've just missed something here. The county commission budget wanted questions answered, and we just started working on them this week?
Yes, ma'am. The questions, we started getting those questions on that Friday before would have been a week ago Friday. And then some came in on Saturday as well. And then Monday is the last day Ingrid was here, and then she was gone on vacation the rest of that week.
But we didn't have all the questions early on? Okay.
No, not, and those, some of the commissioners had been out of town, so there were just some different reasons why we didn't get those, but when we got them.
That's fair. Thank you so much.
All right, so we did work Monday morning, got answers prepared. Mr. Price, Mr. Loesch and I, and then Monday afternoon, yesterday, we set up a meeting with Finance Director Mr. Bailey and Ms. Bonner and Kirsten Buttram. We're in there, and we sat down and went over our responses. Thought we had a really a good meeting. And so we finished that up, and we have come to the point now where we're having a special call meeting to see what the recommendation of our school board is after we had our budget was returned to us on what our next steps would be. And so this needed some guidance. I sent out the questions and responses, so we can do one of two things. If there are anybody has any questions or additional information to add to any of the responses that we have, be glad to entertain those. And then if not, then talk about what our plans are, what we want to do with our budget. We're set to be back with the budget committee tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So just we'll need to vote by the end of tonight of what our plans are. Any discussion?
Mr. Carter, could you go over what David Connor had spoke about at the budget meeting about how he's the president of the Tennessee County Service Association?
Yes.
Could you repeat her question?
David Connor made a presentation before the budget committee, before the agenda really got underway, regarding TISA and how what the requirements were And basically what his comments centered around were that it's a process. There's a 4-year period of raises to get your first-year teachers up to $50,000 as the base pay. And so he showed how this year the state had given money to get the salary for a beginning teacher with a bachelor's degree, no experience, up to $44,500. That does not, and he did mention and state that that does not have anything to do with getting competition from other counties and other districts where we're competing against other municipalities that offer higher wages. The fact that if we were wanting to get up to the $50,000, that would still get us to where we have to take into consideration all those and the other steps and years of experience. And so you can't just say we get the first-year teachers up to 44.5 and we're okay. We've got to take care of all those others. Plus, in our situation, I feel like we were really trying to address the needs for our support staff as well. So, and that's not included in that, or wouldn't be included in that as well. Any other questions or comments on any of the information that Mr. Loesch and we were put together there?
Do we know yet, do we have any kind of explanation for the change in the value of the penny? I know we speculated that it could be TIFs or assessments. Do we know for sure? Does anyone know for sure?
Mr. Bailey?
The adjustments coming from the property assessor's office went down.
Mr. Carter,
Yes,
the
sir.
the webinar that was presented earlier this week, Mr. Connor, I think, was a guest speaker at that
That
webinar,
one for TSBA, yes, sir.
the SBA. He talked at great length about some school systems, such as us, who have to compete with city school districts making higher money. I don't know if you can have access to where you can play that webinar or not, but the webinar would be very enlightening if you've not heard it before, because he emphasized that the 44.5 would not make us competitive with local school systems, especially city school systems. He wasn't speaking specifically about Sullivan County, but he was speaking about all across the state of Tennessee, that's a problem. He mentioned some of the counties of where minimum salary, when there's low industry and when there's almost remote counties, that might work. But with counties such as us, where you can live here, your current resident, you can get a job in Kingsport, Bristol, Johnson City, Elizabethton, and even Washington County, and I believe make more money in all those systems that I just mentioned. I know Washington County went ahead of us this past year, and I'm not sure about Elizabethton. But you can do that without even moving. And that is one of the things that we're dealing with as we look at these salary schedules. We have to make sure that we are competitive. I believe you said we lost 17 teachers after the school year started last year. Is that correct, Mr. Carter? And how many have we lost already this spring? Do you have a number on that yet?
3.
3? Did we lose the physics teacher that? And we know physics teachers are very hard to find. And physics teacher went to a city school system making probably $10,000 to $12,000 more than what we were paying. We have to be competitive, if we're going to be successful. And the salary schedule that's published by the state of Tennessee is called a minimum salary schedule. This is not something that's new. There's been a minimum salary schedule published by the state of Tennessee for many years. What is new about it this year, or at least from my point of view, they have compressed the salary schedule to where they have it down by grade bands. Just a few years ago, there was a law at Tennessee Code that said that second and third year teachers had to make a certain amount of money above first year teachers. I don't know if that law still exists or not. Probably not, because the laws do change. But the rules that have been listed, they come from Tennessee minimum rules and regulations. That says something about what we're looking at. Tennessee minimum rules, Tennessee minimum regulations. If we're going to be a high-performing system, we need to be competitive with the city school systems in our area and with other county systems that are making more than us.
I'd like to make a few points, if I might. First of all, I believe that we would have already seen a larger movement in retirements and maybe even people leaving had it not been for the possibility of a good pay increase. That's one point I would make. And I would say that 15%, while it sounds like a lot of money, really just barely puts us above what inflation has taken away, and it's really not, don't put us much higher than what we really need to be. We're still not really all that competitive. And furthermore, some of our support staff, such as our maintenance department and others, are pitifully underpaid. You're talking $21.50 for somebody that's a professional in HVAC or something, and a 15% raise don't even put them above $25. You just can't go out in the market and hire people to do those type jobs and pay those type wages. And I understand we get benefits, but you can't eat benefits. And I know there's tough decisions to be made, but I think if we want to compete, now's the time. Next year it gets tougher, and the year after that it gets tougher because we're losing ground. Bristol gave a 5% increase already this year, and I think over the last couple of years they've realized about 16% additionally. So, and they're always going to be ahead of us. We realize that. Pardon me? But past 3 years. And I understand they're always going to be ahead, and I know one of the sticking points is to get $6 million for us, you have to raise $14 million, give or take, in revenue. But that's not something we can control. And I would like to also point out that we're not asking for the entire 15%. What we're asking for amounts to, I believe, about 40% of the entire cost of the raise. In other words, we're pulling about, We're asking for 60, but we're providing 40. So we're providing 40 out of our budget. So, in 2021, we took a huge leap and provided a 10 or 11% raise out of our budget entirely. And I think we've done really well to be able to squeeze those type numbers out of our budget. But $4 million is as much as I can see, and I think Ingrid and Mr. Carter and the chairman done a really good job to do what they did in this budget. So I'm going to have a hard time going back and telling people, let's wait till next year. We've done that, especially our support people. I don't know how you do that to people that are, they don't have any choice in their budget. They're having to do without and adjust in their budget. They've lost about 17.8% to inflation over the last 3 years. And I'm not saying it's an easy decision for anybody, but I think it's a decision that has to be made. Every company, every entity, every household in America has had to adjust for what's happened in the economy. And and another point I would make, we lost about, and Mr. Jones and others, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we lost about $4 million in revenue from sales tax, right, last year? Is that correct?
We lost 4 million out of property tax.
That's what I'm,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Plus, in 2015, taxes were raised 27 cents, with 3 cents designated for renovation, which was 1.6 million. So had we had those funds, we really wouldn't be having to ask for much money, would we? I mean, we'd be within $600,000. I mean, it's just off the top of my head, but, you know, anybody's welcome to correct me, of course, but, so, I think we've managed our budget really well. I'd be open to criticism and suggestions from anyone to how it could have been done better. So I just don't know how we go back and tell our people that maybe next year. That's just my take on the issue, and I have several pages of notes that I won't bore everyone with, but those are just some thoughts from the top of my head.
Mr. Jones, we have that queued up if you think it'd be the pleasure of the board to watch it.
Can you fast forward it to where you're picking up the last 5 minutes or 10 minutes?
I believe
If the-
Amy
if the
has it
board
back
doesn't- If the
there.
board doesn't object, I think it will be time well spent.
This is a presentation that was made to TSBA by David Connor. A little bit before that, Ms. Griselle. Okay. So the only issue might be that our audio may not pick up as well, just because the way, not anything on us, but the way that it was wired in, I guess, by the health department.
Can it be sent to us?
Yes. I don't think it's up at the max on volume. We can, it's more the hearing it as opposed to the seeing it. Could I actually run it like that? Could I put my mic down to mine and play it there? Just let it play through there. Let me do that. Amy, I'm gonna get it on here and then use my microphone.
Thank you for joining us.
On with sales tax, with other things.
The municipality has to deal with. We only have 14 special school districts in the state. So out of the 141 elected boards, only 14 of them are special school districts that have to deal with kind of that unique set of circumstances. The next question is, will the required MOE amount always be higher than the minimum TISA funding level? The required MOE will always be at or above the minimum TISA funding level. Think of it as two things operating side by side. As long as maintenance of effort is at or higher than the minimum funding level, everything's okay. And this is where it comes back to the state budget. But if more money is added to the funding formula, and because more money is added to the funding formula, that raises the minimum funding level to the point where maintenance of effort is below the minimum funding level, then the state is going to come back and say, county, you have to raise the amount of local dollars you're giving to get to at least the minimum funding level. And at that point, the minimum funding level becomes your maintenance of effort as well. So there are times where your maintenance of effort and minimum funding may be the same, but never will your maintenance of effort drop below the minimum funding level. Now, your minimum funding level may decrease, if you have a loss of enrollment or some other circumstances.
I think the area that we're
we
wanting
saw that
really to
with some
focus
hold
on is a
harmless,
little bit, I'm
for
gonna
instance.
fast forward just a little bit more.
When you're looking at, as a key takeaway,
All
or
right.
And from the state, the maintenance of effort may have to go up.
in that minimum, that's gonna be a bigger, test can work. Even though there are different laws about the process and the different laws may apply differently, to you depending on which one you're under, at the end of the day, the school board is the entity that adopts the board budget. The county is the entity that approves the budget or rejects the budget in whole and funds that budget. And sometimes, as David mentioned, it could be a good marriage, and sometimes it could be a struggling marriage. But I will also say this: I've been here and I've seen it go in cycles at different places. So for a few years in one county, it may have a difficult marriage, and then all of a sudden you have a great marriage between the two, and vice versa. So that's kind of two key takeaways I wanted to talk about. Also with the TISA and the maintenance effort provision. David, anything else you wanna touch on in this as we kind of wrap up as a key takeaway, or something you wanted, to share with our members that for them to be thinking about?
Yeah, sure. One thing I'll throw out, and this is all relative to counties. Cities may be different from municipal districts, but there's also a category of counties that have a private act that centralize their finance. Usually those are very similar to either the 81 or 57, just with some slight tweaks. So there could be something if your county's under a private act that's a little bit different than what's in those general laws, but that's just a fourth category that's out there. I guess I'll say this, Ben and I have talked about that. You all know this. When TISA was being promoted initially a couple of years ago, there were a lot of town hall meetings. There were a lot of discussions out there in the public. In many cases, the State Department of Education, as they were promoting the idea of going to this new plan, they talked about how we think this is something where we're gonna reduce the required local match, and you're not gonna have to raise funds for 3 or 4 years, and you're not gonna have to do these different things. A lot of our members heard that, and we've tried to explain to them, and we repeat to them that hold harmless or that hold on the local match was not included in the law anywhere. It's not an actual statutory provision. So you may have heard that, oh, don't expect to have to raise any taxes locally for 3 or 4 years. That's not entirely the case. And like I said, especially with the increases in teacher salaries, which I think are something absolutely we need to do. We need to get those up to be able to recruit the best teachers we can for our public school system. You may be dealing with some county commissioners that are like, wait a minute, I heard from the Commissioner of Education 2 years ago, and she said we would never have to raise taxes for 3 or 4 years. I'm just going to throw it out there that conversation happened and was out there. I've tried to stress and have our members understand what I'm calling the difference, I guess, between the state board's minimum salary schedule and the actual one that most of you have. I think, to my knowledge, most school systems and school boards have adopted more of a step system that's got 20 years or 30 years worth of steps based on experience. I think most of you have salary schedules where a year 2 teacher makes something different than a year 1 teacher. But I've let them know it's like the state is funding and they're sending money down to cover raises based on that simplified, I'll call it state board schedule of year 0, year 1 to 5, year 6 to 10, and then above that. So I think it's useful for you to explain to the board or to your county commission that the board has worked out this schedule in agreement with probably your local education agency and others. This is the way we're trying to operate. It's not exactly the same as the states, but here are the reasons why we think it's important. Ben already mentioned some of those. You don't want to see compression of salaries. If somebody's only going to get a raise every 5 years, they're probably more likely to try to jump ship and go to another school system. So I think it's good to explain that to your county commission. They aren't necessarily going to know how all that works. I tend to be a person who's more, I think giving them more information is better. When I go to yard sales, I don't tend to haggle with people. It's like if they got $1 price on something, okay, I'll give you $1. I'm always shocked if we have a yard sale at our house and you've got something for sale for 50 cents and people come in and want to say, well, how about I just give you a quarter?
Yep.
And that's going to be different from county commission to county commission. So some of you may have to go in saying, we need $3 million. We're going to ask for 5 and negotiate down. Others of you may be able to go in and make the case as to this is the $3 million we need and why we need it, and hopefully get where you need to go. So that's sometimes personalities make a big difference from place to place. As Ben said, you see those counties where the school board and the county commission seem to just not be able to agree, and they're struggling back and forth with each other. And then maybe the chair of the county commission changes, or there's a new director of schools, or something happens, and suddenly they're holding hands and in concert, and everybody's working together.
Absolutely. And it's kind of funny how that works sometimes. To go from not agreeing on anything to 100% across the board, fine. And I think you're right about the salary schedule. You know, most districts have a 20 to 30 step salary schedule. They don't use the simplified salary schedule. So even though the state board has that 1 to 5 period, well, in most districts, your second year and fourth year teacher are making different amounts, even though under the state board salary schedule, it's the same. And part of that is a recruitment tool. Part of that is to keep people around. And districts are not only looking internally, but they're also looking externally. What's the county next door doing? What's the district, right down the road doing? So those are a lot of different things. And in, Tennessee's in that interesting geographic area where we have so many other states to worry about, and so many counties border or are within commuting distance of other states as well. So that's a whole nother consideration that has to come into play for some counties, because I've talked to those border counties and those school districts, and they are losing teachers, 10 minutes down the road, they can go to Alabama or Georgia or North Carolina and make a little bit more money. So those are certainly considerations that happen. Going to some of the comments, a school board, essentially, the school board has the authority to send in that budget. And if the county rejects it, the school board can send back that budget once again. And if they don't get to an agreement by August 31st, then the school district does get maintenance of effort, regardless of, what the county chooses or the school board chooses, it's maintenance of effort. Now, the thing to think about on that, if you're going in asking for more money to increase maintenance of effort, and you go through this process, well, at the end of the day, it doesn't work out, maintenance of effort is what you get. Now, yes, over a 3-year period, it could increase maintenance of effort, but you're also going to come to the point to where you might create an even more hostile marriage, if you will, between the school board and the county commission for an extended amount of time. So at the end of the day, it comes back to relationships, and we always encourage boards, have individual personal relationships with your county commissions. Invite your county commissions to your budget meetings, your school board meetings. Let them know and understand what's happening. I've been to school board meetings where county mayors come to those meetings, where county commissioners attend those meetings, just on a regular basis. And they have that relationship worked out where both entities understand what's happening with the other entity, and it helps when decision-making has to occur. And they understand the thought process and what needs to occur on an overall county level. And things tend to kind of move forward in those situations. So just certainly something to think about. Do we have any more questions?
I think we're good.
Tried to answer and respond.
And I would like to say thank you. We do have county commissioners in the room, and we do have our finance director in the room. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate that. And don't want to interrupt our discussion, but I do want to introduce who we're going to be working with as our new maintenance supervisor. He just got off work, and I said, just come on in. He didn't even have time to go home or anything. But Bill, would you just stand up there real quick? He's got baseball practice for his son tonight, so he need to come on in and then get home and get ready. And I apologize, I was going to do that very first thing, Bill. But this is Bill Burchett. Bill currently works for ETSU in a similar role, and he'll be starting here July 1st with us. And just wanted to take a chance just to put a name and a face together, Bill. So not that you have to say anything, but is that welcome. And we'll be talking more than Bill, and if you have to go, you go at any time, okay? All right, thank you. Thank you for coming. All right, so as was brought out in the presentation there, I think a lot of the points that we're trying to express is that we are in that competing situation. And beyond competing, we have teachers and staff members and support staff that we're trying to show them that they're appreciated, and that that our county appreciates them as well and supports them. And so I feel like we have a budget that does that. So any thoughts or takeaways from the presentation there, or other comments?
I agree with what Mr. Carter just said. I sat here and try to think about what I want to say and how I want to say it, but I think that we have the absolute best teachers in this county. And, you know, I've been in those schools, and I've seen what they do. I know the job they do. I know the hours and hours they spend outside of this classroom, working at home, weekends, worrying about stuff, spending money out of their own pocket to pay for materials, and, you know, never want any kind of credit for it. And, you know, that's awesome. And I know what we're asking is a lot. I know we're asking for, you know, that's a pretty big amount. But I do think that the teachers and the staff are 100% worth it. And I think that, you know, I don't want us to be a training ground for other departments, other areas. You know, come here and work for 2 or 3 years, get some experience, and go to wherever else, right down the road, to make $8,000 or $10,000 a year more. I think that we should at least be competitive with our neighbors. And unless anybody else has anything else, I'd like to make the motion that we send this back over to the Budget Committee as is, and at least let them look at the answers to our questions.
I'll second that motion.
Anybody got anything else to add?
Yeah, I'd like to make a few more comments. And I make these comments knowing that a lot of the people in the room know this, but I make these comments based off some of the questions I've received in the last week or so for those people who may be listening that don't know. Let's talk about some things that went right in our budget, I think. We were able to spend $11,500,000 for projects that didn't have to be split with the cities, that will be paid for, because we did have a good fund balance, and we hope to maintain that. And every year we hope to bite off those type projects and complete them and pay them for them, not finance them and not borrow the money and not ask for the money. So I looked at the questions that were asked, a lot of good questions, and I really appreciated them. One of the questions, number 8, says, how can you reasonably expect to equalize teacher salaries with the city of Bristol, Kingsport, when both of these systems have revenue sources from 2 entities? And that's a really good question. And the truth is we'll never catch up with them. We know that. And we don't have to. Most people, given the choice, would rather work in our system. If we just get close, they'll stay with us. When many of the people outside our district found out about the possibility of the raise, we had a lot of interest from the cities. A lot lot of people would rather work for the county. We're more loyal to our people, I think, and that's saying nothing negative about the cities. We work hard to be loyal to our people. So we don't have to catch up. We just have to stay close. But given the choice for young people to make 10,000 or more, sometimes they don't really have a choice. They have to go to make ends meet. So again, whoever asked these questions, a lot of really good questions, and I've kind of thumbed through and looked at a lot of them, and I can see that a lot of thought was put into them. So we're out of the ESSER era officially, I think, this month. Life's going to change for all of us in the school system and in the county too, because we benefited from the money that came, and so did the county. Going forward, if we don't have that fund balance and revenue to work out of, we're going to be in trouble. And furthermore, we didn't, some of the people who ask me questions want to know why we can't use fund balance for raises. Of course, everyone sitting here knows we can't. To the people who may be listening who don't, we can't do that. But we can put it to good use and do projects and things to keep from asking the county for money. And I think we've done that. And I looked at that list of things that we've done this year. One of them includes $4 million for the road at Westridge. We spent a lot of money at East on lights and things that hadn't been done since the 60s. Of course, every one of you have the answers, and this is a public document, but for whoever asked the questions, thank you. And I saw a lot of positive things when you look at the questions. But I just want to make those points, Mr. Chairman, before we voted, for the public, more or less.
Any further discussion? Ms. Stanley?
How much of our budget, Mr. Carter, are we using of our own money for this raise?
Ingrid, we were able to work out, what, close to 4 million? 3.9 of our own through being very creative and making some cuts in there that we're able to use some money from our fund balance and then come back with the request for the additional.
If we put the teachers aside, the new hires that will be coming in doing the 50,000, put that aside. We're talking about bringing up our teachers that have been here, say, 6-7 years, that will not be making that 50,000. And we've got to bring them up so we don't lose them. It's not, I try to take care of my employees in my business. And if you don't take care of your employees, they're going to leave. They're going to go somewhere else. I talked to a custodian the other night. They come up to me, and she said, when I started out with the school system, I made $9 an hour. And she said, I make $12.65 now, and I've been here 9 years. I mean, that's embarrassing. You know, and we're not talking about just teachers making or getting the raise. We're talking about our custodians, our maintenance people, and I think those people deserve a raise also, other than just our teachers. They work hard, and they keep our schools up. And I think that they deserve a raise just like the teachers do. And another thing I wanted to ask, with the sales tax being down, it really hurt us when it come to the budget where they take away the property taxes. And I'm afraid the way that the economy might be going, we might see even bigger hit with these sales taxes. That might be, I think, a concern of ours that we might be looking into in the next few years with our sales tax. But I support us giving all of our employees raises. I think that they all deserve it, not just the teachers. Because it's time. You talk to the city. I've talked to assistant principal at Bristol yesterday. They got a 5% raise. They get a raise every year. Kingsport City, I talked to one of the board members. They said we give all of our employees a raise every single year. The last time that they got a raise here was in 2021, 2022. They don't get a cost of living raise. When I was on the county commission, we made sure that our county employees got anywhere from 2 to 5% raise every single year. And those employees appreciate that. So I would like for us to have a future plan in our budget on trying to give our employees a raise too, every single year, a percentage on the cost of living. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Rouse?
Mine's short and sweet. I think it boils down to what do we value? And I think it boils down to doing the right thing for the right reason.
I'd just like to make a couple other points about some of the questions that were asked that I thought were good questions. Somebody asked, why not consider a bonus? And I think a bonus is the most inefficient way to distribute money. First of all, it's a one-time thing and it's taxed at, what, 20%, Ingrid, straight off the bat? 22, did you say, somebody? 22%. So the employee don't realize a lot of that bonus, and it's a one-time thing, and it's a really inefficient way to spend money, in my opinion. The other thing I'd like to mention, if we had every employee, I think we had 83 or something that was below 50, but if you raised the new teachers above 50, some new teachers would pass up teachers who had been here 9 years, which is not a good look. So those are a couple of points looking at the questions that I wanted to just hit upon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
To Dr. Rouse's good point, I mean, unless I'm missing something, when we received the projected revenues late, as I might add, under the law from the, under the new, I keep calling it new, it's been 4 years now, but the Financial Management Act, when we got those late, am I incorrect in saying that it amounted to the least amount legal to fund the school system, that it was the minimum maintenance effort by calculating the number of pupils and then funding at the bare minimum level for projected revenues that we were supposed to deal with?
Yes, that's correct.
I mean, all this stuff can get complicated, and financing the schools is very complicated, and the county commission and the school system have to work together. But, I mean, to Mr. Hughes' point, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, people just need to understand facts, and I'm subject to challenge just like Mr. Hughes said, but when you raise property taxes 9 years ago and 3 cents are designated to go to school renovation, and then that money is immediately taken away from the school system. Almost every year I've been on the board, we haven't even had a renovation budget. And then at the urging of our local government, they pass a private act that then allocates all responsibilities under the county executive, who can then appoint the financial management director. One interesting thing I'd say people ought to look at is that under Section 3D of that act, I mean, this school system out of our general purpose school fund is paying to the tune of $379,000 a year that should be for education to help pay for this newly created finance department. That was passed by law that we have to fund that out of our general purpose school fund. So I'm subject to challenge. I could be wrong, but read section 3D. It was based on the 2020 allocation. So the school system out of our general purpose school fund, which continues to be cut, and then these questions each year of the 8 years I've been on the board are, we're losing students. Well, look at public education everywhere. We're losing students, and we're really at risk in Northeast Tennessee, not just Sullivan County, but with all of the private money that's going into Christian schools and other schools. And hey, I'm all for that. I think that that's the definition of school choice. A parent chooses, but they're not funded with public tax dollars. We need to wake up, because what a lifeblood of a community is our children. I mean, what do people talk about? It doesn't matter how old you are. If you're 43 or you're 93, you talk about your family and your community. What does that revolve around? Sporting events with kids, church, the children's program at church. What draws people together? It's always children. What do people, if we want to be colder, what do businesses look at? What do highly educated, productive businesses want for their employees? They want nice neighborhoods and good, free and public education. That this body is the only one, this county school board is the only one that is constitutionally mandated to provide that. What we're going to do if we keep doing what this cycle has been repeatedly, and if you go back and look at the last few years I've talked about this, and continuing to cut where we no longer get to project our revenues, cut the property tax, the most solid base, out of our budget and take more pennies from that has happened every year since the Financial Management Act, we're setting ourselves up for failure. And hey, it's a fair question to ask, how can we be expected to compete with cities that have two funding sources? But you know what? People in cities pay more in taxes. So is the answer that you think the only constitutionally mandated body should give up? I mean, no, and I don't think anybody would say that. And this school board, whether you can say it needs adult supervision or whatever else it needs, what's really frustrating is all of this was supposed to be set up to make this process easier. A private act was passed that was handwritten locally, and all we've seen is problems in our audit since then that weren't going on with this school system. And our children's tax dollars, to the tune of $379,000 a year, are being used to finance that. And we don't even get the projected revenues on time. So, and then the school system jumps up each time to try to answer questions. I mean, it boils down to, do you think local governance is better or state governance? Because if you think projecting revenues based on the bare legal minimum set by the state of Tennessee is how we want to run our school system, then we're not going to have much public education in Northeast Tennessee much longer. So I'm all for resubmitting the same budget, because at the end of the day, what are we losing? Nothing, because that's all they funded us on anyway, and by law, we're going to get what they offered.
We're ready to vote, Ms. King.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Rouse,
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Stanley.
Yes.
I got anything else? Go to the Budget Committee tomorrow. Motion to adjourn?
Thank you.